Yeehaw! We are back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. And today's reflection is on darkness. Great darkness and greater darkness. In the Isha Upanishad, there is a concept. Within that beautiful text, there's a verse that says, attachment to the material world is great darkness. But attachment to the spiritual world is even greater darkness. It is so easy for any of us to find ourselves, especially if you're checking out a channel like this, attached to the spiritual world. In fact, if you find it even moderately interesting, you are far more susceptible to becoming attached to that than you are to becoming attached to the material world. What do I mean by that? What does the Isha Upanishad mean when it says attachment to the material world is great darkness, but attachment to the spiritual world is greater darkness? Well, attachment to your house, your car, your family, your job, name, reputation, status, money. These are great darkness. They are going to blind you. They blind us all to one degree or another. But what is even more blinding, what is ironically even more egotistical, what is a seemingly higher but an even worse attachment is when we attach to philosophical or spiritual concepts. When we cannot stop chugging through lecture after lecture after lecture, consuming more and more and more in this seemingly spiritual and noble playground where, we've got to figure it out. I'm this close to figuring out, and I'm way ahead of all of these chumps that are attached to their name or their job or money. The reason it is a greater darkness is because it can come with the highest form of egotism. There's very little room for humility when you think you're nobler, when you think you're wiser than those around you. It creates a vast separation between you and them. And if you find these concepts interesting, fascinating, it is only a matter of time before you have to check yourself from wanting to read one more book, take in another podcast. These are meant to be daily. They're not meant to be chewed through like trail mix. Even within this philosophy, it's said that reflection is 100,000 times more powerful than listening. That's because this philosophy predates the written word. So the way that it was transmuted back in the day, 8,000 years ago, would be spoken word from master to a student. But listening to a new concept is essentially nothing compared to reflecting on it. Reflecting over and over and over and over on one simple concept. Maybe it's on a single word until you understand it. I know this feeling so well. 3-4 years into studying this philosophy, I wanted to go to the depths of all of these different texts that were outside of the 3-year course at the ashram. And there's 12 books in the 3-year course. And I have done the 3-year course, the online course you could do in a year and a half. And I've done it a few times. It's so beautiful, it's so easy, and it's a miracle that you can take a course in an ashram from your pocket, from your couch in LA. It is just a miracle. So, slight tangent. Incredible. But early on, I was going through 2 lectures, 3 lectures a day. I was looking up all of these different texts, all of these either reference texts that would be mentioned in the lectures, or they would be ones that I'd find on my own and say, I got to get a copy of that. And I'd pore over it. If you find these even moderately fascinating, then it's more fascinating to spend your time in this subject than anything else in your life. I mean, these are these subjects, right? We're talking about eternal bliss. We're talking about eternal peace. We're talking about the manual for living life well, to where you can get anything you want, and most importantly, you can discover what you actually want. It is a subject that covers harmony between relationships, covers mastery in a skill or a craft. It is so practically useful that you can find yourself getting addicted to it, because it deals with topics that, well, just, they aren't going to be on the sitcom that you binge through. They're rarely going to be in some hip new movie. And many of our jobs don't touch on these eternal concepts. So it's actually quite natural to become even more attached to these concepts, attached to the spiritual world, than it is to become attached to the ones that we already know. There's only so much money that I need. And the more that I have, it's not directly tied to the more happiness it's bringing me. At least when you get far enough in your careers, we start to see that. But this stuff, it's a hell of a promise. When it comes to the material world, no one is saying you're going to have eternal bliss when you get that new Mercedes. No one's saying you're going to have eternal peace if you make 10 million bucks. No one's even saying that. But in the spiritual realm, that's exactly what they're saying. If you find yourself getting a little too excited, know that it is not only natural, but you should also know that it was outlined thousands and thousands of years ago. That it's actually greater darkness than any of your previous attachments. Something to keep in mind, and it's also something that we rarely ever hear. But it's sitting there in broad daylight in one of the most famous Upanishads ever. Attachment to the material world is great darkness. Attachment to the spiritual world is even greater darkness. That's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.